Question number 10, the Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Food Safety. Is she satisfied by all the advice she has received from the Ministry of Primary Industries on food safety?
The Honourable Joe Goodhue.
Mr Speaker, yes.
Supplementary
Mr.
question,
Speaker.
Honourable Damien O'Connor.
When was she or her officials first alerted to the possible risk of hepatitis A associated with imported frozen berries?
The
Mr.
Honourable
Speaker.
Joe Goodhue.
Mr Speaker, the Medical Officer of Health made MPI officials aware late in October of a case which subsequently became 4 cases of hepatitis A. Now, what happens after a case, and there is about 20 in New Zealand a year, what happens after a case is notified to the Medical Officer of Health is that exhaustive questioning is undertaken to determine what might be the evidence for where that hepatitis A has been contracted from. In this case, it has taken until late in last month for the questions to be answered and for there to be genotyping established that shows evidence that it could be from frozen imported berries.
Supplementary, Mr
Supplementary question, the Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Why did the Minister not act and ask retailers to remove products that are possibly contaminated, as happened in Australia 9 months ago?
The Honourable Joe Goodhue.
Mr Speaker, and the answer to this question may be a little longer than normal, but I do want to make it clear to the House exactly what the complete answer is to the member's question. In Australia some 9 months ago, there were 31 cases of hepatitis A. Now, as always the case with looking for evidence of where the disease may have been contracted from, genotyping exists. Now, in all 31 cases in Australia, the genotyping was the same for all of the 31 and was able to be traced to a single product which was able to be recalled. Here in New Zealand, 3 of the 4 cases have had the genotyping completed. The 4th is still underway. And we know for the 3 cases that we have genotyping for that they are from the same source, maybe not the 4th, but maybe it is. And what we know is it's a different source to the Australian cases. I'm giving a straight-up answer. It would pay the members to listen.
Order. A straight-up answer has been given. Further supplementary? Supplementary question, the Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Why won't the Minister name the products affected and offer consumers at least the option themselves of identifying products that might potentially give them hepatitis A?
The Honourable Joe Goodhue.
Mr Speaker, the answer is because we do not have evidence that it has come from one product. Therefore, we want to protect all New Zealanders from the possibility of getting it from any frozen imported berries. Now, I can advise the House that what people need to do if they have frozen imported berries, which have a 3-year shelf life, they need to bring them to 85 degrees for 1 minute or to bring them to the boil, because we do not have evidence of one product. The member is being overly simplistic in his response, and that would not protect New Zealanders, and we will.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker.
Order. Supplementary question, the Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Does the Minister realise that a huge number of frozen berries are never taken to 85 degrees and are in fact put directly into drinks and around this country, and that anyone consuming any one of those berry-flavoured drinks or buying products from a supermarket where frozen berries are in a bag is potentially at risk of catching hepatitis C? And why won't the Minister take a precautionary approach?
Order. Question's been asked. Question's been asked. The Honourable Joe Goodhue.
This is absolutely not a revelation to anyone on this side of the House. That is why the statement was made by the Director-General yesterday, and why the advice has been given that for a product that is processed, like ice cream with berries in it, that will have been raised to heat. However, for a product that is put together in a cafe with frozen berries, in fact, the advice is there if the member chose to read the privilege statement, chose to read the Q&As, then the member would know that we have given the advice to New Zealanders that will keep them safe. I urge the member to read the Q&As, to read the advice, rather than pretending that we haven't given that advice. We've taken it.
Order. Order. Question number... Order.